Me to share a project with you. I don't normally stamp in a hat, but I went out for a walk today and it started pouring down rain as I was there. Yeah, that was kind of fun. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself. I live in North Texas, about 40 minutes from Dallas, north, and I actually have been a demonstrator since 2002. I met Sharon Armstrong, who is my upline, love her. Met her at a party that a friend of mine from church, her daughter was giving. I knew nothing about Stampin' Up, but I went to a workshop. Who remembers those fun days? And met Sharon, had a great time. And of course, what did Sharon do? She asked me to have a party. So I said yes, and then I had a party, and lo and behold, my wish list, I think it was about $1,000. So Sharon said, hey, why don't you get the starter kit? Well, back then, you didn't get to pick the starter kit, and it was more expensive. So we have come a long way. I started out my stamping career, like most of you probably did, just for the discount. But I realized that it could be so much more. And at the time, Sharon lived in Texas, so we had lots of fun events. And then, darn her, she moved away to Arizona because her husband got a job. What kind of deal is that? But she's back here now. And of course, you all know her because of all the fabulous things she does here on the Creativate team. Well, I've been doing Facebook Lives for a long time, and if you haven't tried those in your stamping business, I encourage you to do that. Do you remember like the old I Love Lucy days? Maybe I'm dating myself, but those were live. So when Lucy or Ricky or someone made a mistake, they just went on and everybody laughed and nobody worried about it. It's the same thing now on Facebook Live. I do other videos, but you have to do editing and all of that. Well, Facebook Lives are great because if you make a mistake, and I make lots of mistakes, you're able to just roll on. People are so forgiving, and I think it makes you a little more human. Well, since COVID, I'm sure that I, like most of you, have had to kind of switch things up a bit in our businesses. I've been doing online stuff for a while, but I really made a big shift with COVID. I actually do still do a couple of clubs in person, but when we couldn't meet, I just mail the ladies their packets, and then we had a Zoom call, or I did a Facebook Live explaining how to do everything in their kit, and then I uploaded it. Zoom can be a little bit tricky because you have everybody wanting to talk, so you have to work with muting and all of that. But hey, we just do what we have to do, right? Well, I am super excited to get started. So let me just flip my camera around and we'll get started with my project. And hopefully I won't make you too seasick. All right, here we go. All right. Well, here is the project that I'm going to do for you all tonight. It actually uses the free Darling Donkey stamp set. I'm sure a bunch of you have this. It's so cute. And I'm going to use the ombre paper as well. I know that was back ordered, and actually, funny story, last weekend was one of my stamp clubs, and of course, everybody ordered that ombre paper, and when I went to order it, whoops, lo and behold, you couldn't order it, but it was supposed to arrive Monday, so at least they turned it back on. It was still back ordered, but you could add it to your order. So, phew, saved by the bell on that one. All right, so the first thing on this little project, I used my basic white cardstock for my card base. Now, you probably all know this little tip, but I'm going to just show you because it saves a little time. If you're going to make a card like this, or where it opens at the top, rather than one that opens at the top with a 1/4 inch, not a quarter, 4 1/4. What you can do is, if you will just score it at 4 1/4 and then come over and cut it at your 5 1/2 mark, voila, you have 2 cards and you've only done 1 score and 1 cut. If you do the cuts first, you have to make 2 scores, and you probably think, well, that's not any big deal, but you know, sometimes if you've got a lot to do, you want these time-saving tips. So we've got our card base. The next thing we need is our Bermuda Bay layer. And that is going to be at 4 5 1/4. So we're going to do 4 and we're going to do 5 1/4. All right, and I'm going to leave this cutter here because I'm going to show you a fun little tip that I hope will help you. Okay, I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Seal. You also can use the multi-liquid glue. Now, I like to use the liquid glue on a lot of my projects because it's more forgiving. And if you need to kind of oosh things around, you get a little more room. All right, so, good. It's kind of sticking here. I want to show you another tip. If you or your customers have trouble with this Stampin' Seal, sometimes not jamming, but not rolling smoothly, if you put it on that silicone mat, just like I did, it will start to roll again just beautifully, and then you can have your layer already. And if it jams up again, just keep doing it. I keep one of these mats right by me so it's always ready to go. Okay, now the next thing is we are going to use strips of this ombre paper. Now, okay, I just see something I did. Let me show you another little tip. If you breathe on your paper, you can just take this layer right off and it won't rip your paper. And you'll see why I needed to do that. I got ahead of myself. So I have 4 strips here of the ombre paper, all the different colors. And they're 1/2 inch and they're still at 6 inches long. And I'll show you in a sec why I left it that way. You can really put them down any order that you want. I'm going to start with the Granny Apple Green. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just put the adhesive in the middle. I don't want it on the ends, and you'll see why in a sec. Okay, so I've got that one layer down. Next, I'm going to take my Bermuda Bay, And you see the Rococo Rose is on the other side of that. You could make these strips thicker if you wanted, but I like the 1/2 inch. Now I'm butting it right up next to the other strip that I put down. And we're just going to keep going with these other ones. And it doesn't matter if they're not even on the right or the left edge. Trust me. On that, I will show you why it doesn't matter here. All right, so we've got these little guys on here. Now, obviously, we don't want these hanging off the edge. So all you need to do, and you could either put it in your trimmer, or I think it works a little bit easier to just take my snips and come right here along the edge and just snip those off. Now, if you wanted to, you could have trimmed down your piece to start with so you'd have a bigger piece at the end, but I preferred to do it this way since I'm doing it on the diagonal, and that way I don't have to measure and fuss with it and figure out all the dimensions that I need. Okay, there is our Bermuda Bay and our little ombre strips. Now I can stick it right back on here, and who would even know that I made a boo-boo? I don't know if you noticed, one thing I do when I put down my paper, I put down one corner, then I get the opposite corner kind of set, and then I put down the rest of it. It's a little bit easier for me to keep it straight. All right, now this piece is with basic white, and this is what we're going to stamp on. I'm using one of the dies from the Ornate Layers, and I want to show you a little trick. Do you ever sometimes, maybe it's just me, but let's say you're going to cut this and you go and you just grab a full sheet of paper and, then cut around it and start cutting? Well, you waste a lot of paper that way. So what I've started doing is, if you take your trimmer, and of course you can measure, it's got the measurements in the catalog, you can take a ruler, but watch this, guys, it's real easy. If you lay the edge of your die right next to this white edge, then you'll have just a wee bit of space left where the track is where you're going to cut. So then if you come over here and you can just put a ruler, or you can kind of eyeball it, I can see that if I were to have my top measurement right here at 3 1/8, that I would have plenty of room. Then you could either leave this in here, flap over your guide, and then, push down your blade, and that will kind of give you the measurement this way. But I actually find it just as easy to do the same thing. Come across here at the top, and then you can see how much space you need. Again, we need like 4 7/8. So here is the piece that I cut. I measured my square of basic white, so I knew I would have exactly enough, and then I cut it out, and there it is. I don't know, can you see that? Let me put it on the background. So you're not wasting any paper, and I just think it's a great way to do it. Something else I do that helps me in my measuring, a lot of my customers are really visual people. So what I did is I created this template kind of a thing. And I cut out using different colors. And if some of you have really sharp eyes, you'll notice that these were in colors from a long time ago, but it doesn't matter. So I've got my card base. Then of course my next layer is my 4 by 5 1/4. Then I'm going down to my 3 7/8 by 5, and you get the idea. You just keep going. So the fun thing is you can take these off and then you can place them on your card, and you can kind of get a visual of what the layers will look like before you've chopped up a bunch of paper and decided, ooh, I don't really like that. And how did I learn that? Yeah, you got it. I chopped up a bunch of paper and wasted it, so I came up with that. All right, let's bring in, here is my little framed piece that we're going to stamp on. Now, this is a rubber a red rubber stamp, so you do not need to stamp on your piercing mat. All right, so I am going to use Memento ink, and I am going to ink up this baby. Now, you could use the Stamparatus for this and line them all up with your hee-haw and your You're the Best and your little donkey, but I decided just to do it with my blocks to show you kind of how I do that, because some of you may not have the Stamparatus. All right, so here's my little donkey, and I am just going to stamp him right in the center. And I'm just going to take a minute or two to let the ink transfer onto this white paper. All right, hey, I didn't mess that up. Woohoo! All right, now we're going to do the little hee-haw. This set is just so fun. It reminds me of the little zebra set that we have. I just think these are so cute. And you could actually, there's a sentiment in there that says, kick up your heels. I think it's in that set. I don't think it's in the donkeys. And those are interchangeable. So that's something to make sure you point out to your customers. All right, now I'm going to do this, You're the Best, right down here at the bottom. And you'll see why I'm want to make sure it's down here with enough room at the bottom in a second. All right, now, who loves Stampin' Blends? Yes, I do too. And what I'm going to do, you'll notice this little green grass area here. You could do brown and make it dirt. I just decided to do green because it kind of coordinates here with my Granny Apple green. And what I like to do when I'm stamping something like this donkey or the zebra or a flower, I like to ground it so it doesn't look like the donkey is right there in midair. So I'm going to just take my brush end of this, and remember, when you use your blends, you want to have something like a piece of cardboard or something underneath. Okay, so I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to just very quickly just put some grass here and kind of go out. A little more here. And then you'll notice that's why I left the room here when I stamped the You're the Best, because I don't want that to get into the grass. Now, The other thing you can do is take a sponge, and I'm going to grab my balmy blue. I didn't do it on this card, but I wanted to just show you. If you just take kind of a little bit of that balmy blue ink, and it's probably hard for you to see it here. Let me see if I can get a little more on here and then hold it up. So I'm kind of just putting in a little bit of sky here and have it kind of meet my grass down here. Can you see that? Hopefully a little bit. It just sort of, like I say, grounds it and makes it look a little more real, like the donkey is in a field or something. Okay, now let me grab my smoky slate Stampin' Blend. Sorry, I kind of went away for a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just quickly start to lay down just a little color on this. Now, I like to just make little teeny circles all around. You can also just do little flicks, kind of just like this, so you don't lay it on too heavy or get outside of the lines. Of course, if you do get outside of the lines, you know, we have our, what is it called? The clear one that lets you remove color. All right, so let me just go down here, put a little more of the light down here. Okay, now I am going to come back in with this light basic black, where some of these lines in the stamp are, because I want to add just a little teeny bit of shading, and I want his hooves to have a little more. See here how I'm just putting a little bit in there and a little bit on his tail. Then what I'm going to do is go back with my light smoky slate, and I'm going to just blend that in. Man, these Stampin' Blends I love. And I got to say, I don't know about you, but I like these better than our old Blendabilities, because I think it's much easier to help our customers, especially newer stampers and crafters, learn how to use them. The ones where we had the light, the dark, and the medium, you know, I think that was a little hard for people to blend and to have them work better. And they're cheaper too, and that's not bad, right? Now, I'm going to leave his little face white just because I wanted to show you, you don't always have to color in every single thing. Now I'm going to go, and I am going to color in the stem and the little leaf here on the rose. And I'm using the light Granny Apple. You could certainly use the dark. Now I'm going to go in on the tip of the rose, and I am going to use the dark Rococo Rose. Again, you could use the light. Makes no difference whatsoever. Okay, now the last fun little thing. These are our rhinestones. Now, how many of you have trouble when you get these and you've got your little flap here on the back that has stickiness? You flip it open, take them out, use them, and then when you go to stuff them back in, it sticks. It might even rip off some of them. Well, look at this little tip. actually, my downline, Louise, shared this with me. She might even be on here tonight. If you just snip off the right side just a teeny bit and the left side, then you can slide these puppies out so easily to get what you need, put them back in, and you haven't had to undo that. So that's just a free little tip for you, just because. Okay, now I want to color my rhinestones. I chose the Granny Apple, but of course you could use the raspberry, the blackberry, the rococo, the Bermuda. You could even use pool party, whatever you have. So I'm going to just take my blend, and I do it with my rhinestone still on my sheet, because then if I happen to get some off of the rhinestone, it won't ruin my project. Now, of course, you can always, whoops, that one hopped off. You can always fix it. You know, there's never a mistake in stamping. There is just an opportunity to embellish. All right, so let me come back in here. And I've got my little pick tool, but it's not handy, so I'm going to just use my scissors, and it should work out just fine. All right, let me gather that. And I think we'll put this one right here. Okay, now we can just slide these right back in here, and they'll be ready to go with me to Stamp Club. Okay, now remember, we've got our base here. Now I'm just going to take some Stampin' Dimensionals and pop it up on the back. Now, do you see right here where it did blend through? That's why you want to have a piece of cardboard or something that you don't care if it gets ink all over it. And, of course, I've got ink on my fingers. I always get ink on my fingers. Sharon, I know you do too. I guess you have taught me well. All right, let's zip over to here. Okay. Get that one off. And, all right. There we go. Wasn't that easy? I hope you guys are taking advantage of getting your celebration freebies, and also making sure your customers get those, because, you know, every year I know people wait, and then boo-hoo, it's the end of the month. And remember, this year, celebration, the first celebration ends the end of February, not March like it normally does. So there's going to be another one July and August, and of course we'll get to pre-order. So that's another reason to encourage your peeps to sign up, because not only do they get that extra little designer series paper packs, they're going to get to pre-order for the next celebration. Well, guys, I appreciate you so much popping in tonight with me. And if you have any questions, leave it on the site, and I can get Sharon the answers, and she can get back to you. Thanks so much, Sharon, for letting me do this. I love you so much and love all you guys. See you later.